All right, really exciting time for Lumix today. So obviously, as we have just announced, the S1 Mark II, the S1 Mark IIe, and the 24-60 F2.8. Really, again, really exciting time, and I know a lot of you have questions about this, so we're going to take probably about the next maybe like 45-ish minutes, and we're just going to run through and answer questions that you guys have. So what I would say is, depending on which chat you are in, since we are both on the global Lumix channel as well as Lumix USA, if you tag at Lumix USA or at Lumix, just one of the setups there, it'll help me be able to see the questions so we can try to get through some of them like we do typically with these. So, first off, I want to actually kind of talk about pricing really quickly because I know a lot of people have been asking about that. So just so everyone's aware, the S1 Mark II, the pricing for this camera, and I'll list them down, and we'll put them in the description for at least the US channel below. US price is $31.99. Canadian price is $45.99, Australian is $52.99, Euro is $34.99, and pounds are $28.99. For the S1 Mark IIe, US price is $24.99, Canadian is $35.99, Australian is $41.99, Euro is $27.99, and pound is $23.99. For the 24-60mm, US price is $8.99, Canadian is $12.49, Australian's $19.99, Euro is $9.99, and pounds are $8.99. So, we got that out of the way. There's your prices, all that kind of fun stuff. So, for pricing in your region that I didn't mention, please refer to the Panasonic website or your retailer for the pricing for your region. Those are just the prices I have on hand at the moment that I can reference really quickly. So, let's kind of jump into it. So this question comes from the US channel here. It says, from Phil, says, please expand on the timecode support. Is it only with Atmos? Yeah, so Bluetooth timecode support is supported with the Atomos UltraSync Blue. That is the device for now that is supported within the system. With it, there's actually a couple really cool things that have been done with it. I've been using it for a little while now, and as someone who doesn't use a lot of timecode in their work, honestly, because I'm just like one camera operation with it, you can sync multiple devices to a single UltraSync Blue. I have synced up to 5 of them. I believe on UltraSync's or Atomos' website, you can sync up to 6 devices. I have synced up to 5 because that's just what I had to be able to test it with. When you connect them, the device will lock up and it will give you the time code and jam sync it to all the devices. It'll stay connected on Bluetooth while you're within range of the Bluetooth device. And if you happen to walk out of range of the Bluetooth device, well, your time code is jammed, so it's automatically there. When you come back into range, it'll automatically reconnect to the UltraSync Blue and update timecode if it needs to. This way, you're kind of preventing any kind of potential drift or things like that in the real world. But also, if the camera goes to sleep, so if you set this up, say, at the beginning of a wedding or an event, and one of the cameras goes to sleep, the Bluetooth stays connected, so it stays keeping that timecode running. And if you power the cameras off and then power them back on, in my testing, around about 30-ish seconds, it resyncs, reconnects, and jams the timecode back into the device. So it's a really well thought out design for it as someone who doesn't use timecode, and would definitely be much more likely to use it now that I don't have to hardwire things onto a device like this. Let's see here, some of the other questions that came in. If you're looking for price, go back maybe about like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I did just run through all the prices. Arc says, would the S1R2 support Arilog C? So it's Arilog C3. And yes, the S1R2 will also be getting Arilog C3 support. Burst rates sound fast, but can you demonstrate the buffer if it allows continue shooting at reduced speed? So I don't have anything set up for that for this particular stream, but this Thursday at 2 p.m. on Lumix USA, I will be going through where I have the cameras connected up into my switcher so that we can walk through the menus and I can show you some of the cool stuff that's in it there. So definitely join us on Thursday, McCary. Jay Cook, when could we expect the S1R2 firmware update? Unfortunately, I don't have timing on the firmware update for the S1R2, so. Al says, if you can give details about sensor read speeds, as it is the Lumix elephant in the room. I recommend going to look at some of the independent reviews, things like CineD, channels like that. Take a look at what their testing has resulted with as far as readout speeds go. Let's look at the global channel here. Let's see here. I have to do this one on my phone just because I don't have enough real estate, even with the size of my screen. We don't have pricing for Arilog C3 option at this time. Let's see here. S1 Mark II and S1 Mark IIe record internal ProRes RAW. They do not record internal B RAW. You will be able to do ProRes RAW and Blackmagic RAW over HDMI though. Do they have optical low pass filters? No, these don't have optical low pass filters. Is the S1II and the X a legacy product now to be replaced with the S1IIE, and will the S1II X get false color? No, these are not replacing the S5 Mark II and the Mark II X. So they're not legacy, they're still current. The E is definitely not replacing it. And false color, I don't have information as to whether or not false color is coming to the other cameras. Is that SDCF to SSD backup done after shooting through the menu? Yes. This is something I'll actually demonstrate on Thursday on the Lumix USA channel for our live stream. Because it's a pretty cool setup, especially if I'm running between locations and I want to get stuff off my CF Express card onto an SSD that I'm keeping as storage. So I will show you how all that works on Thursday. How is the cooling system? Cooling system's great. It's the active cooling system we've been using in the modern systems. So let's see here. Sorry for the delay. It's a little harder on the global one because I don't see the tag. So I have to look for @Lumix. Is the 4K 120 with the S1II with or without crop? So the S1 Mark II does support 4K and C4K 120 frames per second from about a 1.1 to 1.2 times crop. These are oversampled 4K 120 though. So this is not an APS-C crop on it. It floats between APS-H, which was a 1.3, to full frame. It is labeled in the camera as full because that is the kind of weird no man's land between APS-H, which we don't use as a categorization for sensor size anymore, and full frame. But what I will tell you, again, is that it is a downsampled 4K 120 and C4K 120. The other nice addition that we didn't mention in the announcement video is that these cameras, the S1II, also supports a 96 frames per second option in these modes. So you'll have an option to be able to do different pull downs for 30p timelines, 24p timelines, things like that, just depending on what works for your outlet. The other question that I did see come up here was about Opengate on the S1 Mark II. Now, Opengate on the S1 Mark II does support 6K at 30p, so that's the full sensor height and width at a pixel-to-pixel readout because you're reading every single pixel, and that's at 30p. Then there is a 5.1K full sensor area, so this is a downsampled from 6K. This is 5.1K. That will get you 60 frames per second as well as 48 frames per second. So there is no field of view loss. It is not cropping. It is a downsampled, and that gets you your higher frame rates. The other cool addition is that the S1 Mark II also adds a 4:3 aspect ratio 4.8K full sensor height. So you're going to have the full height of a 35mm sensor that will also be doing 60 frame and 48 frame as well. So big improvements if you're someone who's capturing an Opengate for multi-delivery, or if you're someone who's doing anamorphic capture and you'd rather shoot in that 4:3 ratio, but with the full sensor height for your particular output. Let's see here. Go through some more questions. Does it have record limits? No, there are no hard record limits on this camera. Regarding the 24-60, does it extend while zooming? Yeah. The 24-60. So I have one here, and I'm on a cinema lens, so I don't have autofocus on it. But so here's the 24-60. This is at 24 millimeter, and if I zoom to 60, you see that we get out to 60. Now, if you have been around Lumix for a while, you know that we have a 24-70. So here is the size difference between the 24-70 F2.8 S Pro, and here is the 24-60 F2.8 S series. Now, if I put them to 60 mil on that, and I go to 70 on that, so you can see the labels, you can see the size difference there. It's a pretty substantial size difference between these two lenses. This has been a joy to shoot with, personally. And I am excited to see everyone actually using it. It is a 77 millimeter filter thread, and I think a nice touch that we've been doing with a lot of the more modern lenses, the text that usually goes around the front kind of beauty ring, that gives you like the brand, the focal length, all that information, is darkened. So if you're someone who shoots in maybe higher reflective situations, where maybe you're going to be close enough and you're going to catch the reflection of the front of the lens, if you're not using like matte boxes and filters and all that kind of fun stuff, you won't have the reflection in there with it. So it's a really, really nice solid lens. As we mentioned, it has a lens function button. Obviously not new. We have lens function buttons on the 70-200 2.8. But with this one, what's actually kind of cool is that because you can program the front control dial or the manual focus ring when you're in autofocus, this allows me to actually come in and use things like crop zoom or aperture or whatever you want to set it to. But if I toggle this to turn on crop zoom, I can have this front ring now control my crop zoom percentage or my punch in. So now I effectively get 2 zoom rings on this if I'm using this with an S1II or an S1IIE at the current time. As we mentioned, future firmware updates on this stuff. Let me put this back on my S1 Mark II. Let's see some of the other questions. Do you still have the possibility to crop to Super 35? Yes, you can go in the menus and you can select APS-C. Obviously, not every resolution has that function because that's down to the resolution you're capturing. If you're doing like 6K because you're doing the full sensor width, well, you can't crop to APS-C because that wouldn't be 6K. But if you're doing 4K, you'll have the option to pick the aspect ratio or the sensor area that you want to do. So if you're working with manual cinema lenses, it'll be kind of good because you can then punch in. Lenses that are on the standard with the L-mount Alliance will tell the camera, hey, crop to APS-C, because that's what the lens is designed for. So you'll be able to do that normally. But if you want to do if you're using some fully manual lenses and you want to crop it out so you don't have to deal with vignetting, you have that functionality there. Is it possible to extract HEIF still images from video? That's a good question. I haven't tested that, FC. I can take a look and test, and we can talk about that on Thursday. Let's see here. We're going to go to the global channel here. PDAF and the resolutions, yeah, PDAF supported all the way up 4K 120. Full HD I've never tested full HD 240. Yeah, I don't shoot really a lot of high frame rate, but I can take a look, and again, that's one of those things I'd recommend checking out the videos from those that have had the camera. They use it in so many more different aspects than what any of us do. Even though I probably know maybe outside of our engineering team, I think I'm in the top 2 or 3 people globally that probably know the most about the product. So, but yeah, I just don't shoot high frame rate, so it's not always the first thing that sticks in my mind to test for you. Real main difference between S1II and S1IIE. The S1 Mark II uses a 24 megapixel partially stacked CMOS BSI sensor. The S1IIE uses a 24 megapixel BSI sensor with very similar characteristics to the S5 Mark II and the Mark II X. So it's a difference between partially stacked BSI CMOS and non-stacked BSI CMOS between the two systems. So if you really need the much lower rolling shutter, you want Opengate, you want the faster readout speeds, the faster frame rates, S1 Mark II is going to be the camera in that category. Plus, it gets the dynamic range boost functionality, which gets you that 15 stops of dynamic range, where the S1IIE is going to be doing very similar to kind of what you get out of an S5II 2X, but with all the major improvements from the chassis, the connectivity, the screen, the viewfinder, all that stuff is majorly improved, and the S1IIE gets the CinemaScope aspect ratios. So those are a 2:4:1 aspect ratio that gets you an uncropped width of the sensor, so you can do 6K, so you can do full 6K width, and then you get the proportionate height out of it. And that's a difference that you're going to see between an S5II 2X and an S1IIE. So that's something that the new camera's capable of doing, where the older ones, they're not able to do that. Let's see here. What are the base ISOs in standard profile versus Vlog, please? Give you a very brief overview right now, and then I'll be able to show you this on Thursday. The S1 Mark IIe is going to be the same ISO, native ISO performance as the S5 Mark II Mark IIX. So, what is that? 100, 640 in standard picture profiles. Cine D, Cine V, and Cine A2 all have different. They have a different base. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. Vlog on the S1IIe is going to be 640 and 4000. But then when you go to the S1 Mark II, your ISOs change. In Vlog, your native ISO when you are not in dynamic range boost is 640 and 5000. When you turn dynamic range boost on, you don't have dual native ISO anymore. That goes to a 1000 ISO value. The benefit there is that because it's using the different gain stages to combine the image, kind of similar to what we've done in the past with dynamic range boost, you're going to get a much cleaner image, much cleaner noise floor, better dynamic range performance clearly out of it. So yeah, it's a really, really solid performing mode within the camera. Yeah, and then we'll talk more about that on Thursday, so that y'all can have more information about it. Is the lens stabilized? No, the lens is not stabilized. With our stabilization system, the standard focal ranges, so like 24, 18, like ultra wide to around like 150-ish millimeter, you're probably not going to see stabilization in a lens from us for a couple of reasons. One, it's redundant and doesn't actually add anything to what our stabilization is capable of doing. It adds costs, it adds size, it adds weight, for marginal, if no improvement, based on SEPA standards. When you go much longer than that, where dual IS is a much more important component, that's where you'll see it. And dual IS in that case, the real benefit there is that it extends what your dual stabilization, your stabilization ratings are at longer focal lengths, where the sensor doesn't have as much room to move to correct for the tighter field of view. So if you're using 24 to 60, it would be an immaterial difference whether or not it had stabilization or not. The bigger thing about it would be that if it had stabilization, the lens would be bigger, more expensive, and just kind of extra bulky, for nothing really that gained within it. So let's see here. Do these models include separated menu settings for photo and video with the photo video switch? Yes. Chassis wise, They still carry the photo video switch up on the top here. So if I set my camera up in the photo mode and I make all my custom settings, all my buttons, all that kind of stuff, they'll all stay in the photo mode. Once I switch to video, I can reprogram all of these different controls to something completely different, and they stay fully isolated. You even have the option, and I'll show this on Thursday again as well, you even have the option to have it ignore the mode dial, so that I can say, hey, if I always shoot video and I'm always shooting in manual, I don't want to have to remember to flip into video and then turn my mode dial to M for it, say, because I shoot stills and aperture priority. I can set it where it's an override, that it just puts the camera into manual for video shooting. Yeah. Let's see here. Covered that one. Covered that one. Covered that one. Oh, I didn't go all the way down in the chat. David, question. I still haven't seen any features that would sway me from the S1R2. What am I missing? Is this just a value proposition, kind of like S1II compared to S1IIX? No. As Yuta mentioned in there, they're different tools for different jobs. If you're someone who's really finding benefit with the higher resolution that the S1R2 gives you, the 8K recording, if you don't need things like 70 frames per second electronic burst, if that's where your goal is, then the S1R2 is the camera for you. The S1 Mark II is going to be that camera that if you need things like Opengate 60 frames, so you need the 5.1K 60 frame. If you want things like the CinemaScope options, if you're someone who always ends up exporting in CinemaScope and you don't want to go through 16:9 and cropping, cool, you've got that in an S1II and an S1IIE. They're just different tools. And I think that's what's actually really great about the system, is that you've got different pieces within the line depending on what it is that you as a creator are working on. If you're in photography, like for me, the S1R2, and we've always kind of said this from the get-go, the S1R2 is definitely the 50-50 hybrid in our lineup. And what we mean by that is that it is an incredibly solid stills performing and it's a really good video performing camera. But that video performance may not necessarily match what everybody else needs in, say, more cinematic situations. So you've got the options there, and that's what the whole point of the S1II series is with it. Ready Light, Jeff, hi. I think I owe you a response to a text message. I'm sorry, Jeff. Does the S1II have a cover for the sensor when the camera's turned off? Yes. All of the new S1II series will support the shutter closing function. This is enabled in the menu. It is not on by default, so you go into the setup menu and then you can turn shutter close function at power off on. Yeah. Let's see here. Where do we go? Does the S1II get any of these new features? At this point, I have no clue. When shooting at 24 frames per second, I cannot get my shutter to 48. Why is that? So if you're in shutter speed is going to be in the more traditional photographic shutter speed, so your closest ends up being 50. I highly recommend Sir Luminous that you change to shutter angle. Shutter angle will actually run it at a proper 48 frame per second if you're in 24 frame. This way everything's on the right setup for you. Is the chassis like an S1R2 and an S1II hybrid? I guess you could say that. I like to think of the S1II series as grown up. So there's a lot of attention paid to specific features and functions from the chassis wise that in a more professional world are more valued. So the little bit more robust body, the locking dials, the fully articulating and flip rear screen, the higher res viewfinder, all that kind of stuff. Slightly larger chassis. I mean, we're only talking millimeters here between the two cameras. So it's a really nice kind of grow up of the S1II series for those that need that extra level within it. Will the new lens focus ring feature come to the S9? Not sure at this time. When will these camera and lenses be available to order? You should be able to. I think pre-orders have opened, so check your retailer. If they haven't, maybe just refresh the. Excuse me, just refresh the pages. Cached pages can cause that you don't see that the pre-order page has opened for it. But I've already seen in the chat that it looks like many of the U.S. dealers at least have their pre-orders opened. And they should be shipping soon, short of any kind of potential issues, freight-wise, all that kind of fun stuff. Let's double check the global chat again. Lumix Flow, can you go over the updates as wireless that is coming, or is it here now? So yeah, Lumix Flow will be getting an update to support wireless connectivity to your device. So right now it's S1II and S1IIE. I think firmware updates have to happen for other cameras. And we still know S1II, S1II and the GH7, they're still on the plan for getting updated with Lumix Flow, just not there yet. But wireless functionality, you'll be able to connect wirelessly to it. You'll have access to all the same stuff that you do over wired. One thing that I will let you know is that if you wire connect anything, and this is the same for almost everything, Wi-Fi versus Ethernet hardwire, same thing in this case. Wired connection, lower latency, but you have to be wired. When you do wired connection, that's when you'll be able to do things like use the external secondary monitor. So I can send a secondary feed to a tablet, whether it's an iPad or an Android tablet, and that runs through the connected device. So you'll be able to have an external device that is monitoring, maybe as like client monitor, director's monitor, things like that. And then the other update that it's getting at this time is more exposure tools. So waveform, vector scope, and false color will be enabled on it as well. Do these cameras have RTP RTSP live streaming? No, they don't have RTP or RTSP. They do have RTMP-S. And check with your local region about any kind of regulations or things that are in place with RTMP, RTMP-S, or RTP or RTSP. But the cameras do have RTMP-S. I have tested it, so I can stream direct to YouTube. The biggest thing that you have to make sure of is that if you are going to be streaming to YouTube, you have to make sure that you enable RTMP-S on YouTube's backend. By default, YouTube streams RTMP, and that can cause some potential not connections if you don't have the YouTube side set up correctly to expect an RTMP-S signal from the camera. Let's see here. Other ones that came through. What about color science? Are Lumix S1 Mark II and Lumix S1II cameras the same colors? Would you recommend to use together in the same production? Yeah, you can 100% use them in the same production. The thing about our color science is that obviously every new camera that comes out, there is an evolution of what I would say is just like refinement to color science. Every sensor that is physically used in the camera is going to be slightly different than the other as far as what their tonality response is and things like that. So while you'll have different hardware, that's kind of what the magic behind Vlog is that you can match it to different cameras across the board. You may have to do some subtle changes to different hue leaning, depending, because that can be an underlying hardware characteristic that Vlog, gives you the flexibility to correct with. But 100% you can link and match all these camera footages together. If you're shooting in a log workflow, you'll be fine with that. So let's see here. I had mentioned availability dates. You would want to double check with your local retailer for any kind of more specifics as far as what's available from them. Let's see here. Let's see. Running through some of these questions. Okay, so the question did come up, S1H. So I do have something to say about this. So, obviously with all of our systems, we do plan to support and work on creators with all different levels with it. We have received a ton of requests about higher end video production cameras that are even higher than what we've launched with like S1R2 and S1II, things like that. However, we're still, kind of in the stage with discussions and coordinating like future products and what we would do launch wise with them. So unfortunately, I'm not able to provide details at this time. But we are committed to, providing products that are going to exceed and, meet what your expectations are. So that's just kind of where we are on that one with it. So let's see here. Sir Luminous, I did answer your question. You need to switch to shutter angle if you're trying to get to an exact 48 frame, because 48 frame is not a shutter speed that you would normally see from a photographic background. Does the S1II also have the SSD backup feature? Yes, it does. Let's see here. Does the S1II have PDAF and 1080-60p? Yeah. Is Lumix Lab going to get an update for tablets? I gotta double check. It works fine on my Android tablet. I don't have an iPad, so I haven't been able to test. But yeah, as far as I know, it's supported on all the different devices. If you check the App Store, it'll tell you if it's updated or not. Let's see here. All right, let's go back to this chat. What is the resolutions that you get when using UVC webcam connectivity, and does it transmit 32-bit float audio? I don't have my XLR2 audio adapter now, so I can't test that, but 32-bit float in that use case isn't really going to be as beneficial, but I'd have to double check on that. You can get 1080-60p, you can get 4K resolution out of it. I'm actually using it right now on an S1II USB out to just my desktop. I am actually recording on or streaming with a Shure 50mm F or T2.9. What are these? These are T2.9. This is the Saturn series. So I am doing this in anamorphic, and I'm using Streamlabs and OBS to do the D-squeeze for me. So you can do this. This does work perfectly fine. I am not using the audio over it. I am using a separate audio interface here. This is actually from Rode. Which microphone am I using again? I'm using the Rode NT1 with the A1 audio interface thing for USB audio. And I just want to make a shout out to lighting. I do have an updated light. This is actually a light produced by June. I think I'm pronouncing that right. This is the Molus 100 RGB. This is actually the Kamaki edition of it. So I've updated my lighting scenario. So thank you, June, for providing that for our streams. Yeah, this is awesome. I'll put a link in the US channel for the stream setup that we use and how I've got it set up. Is there a comparison chart detailing the differences and features between the S1 cameras? I don't know if it's up on the websites yet. I will have to double check because obviously I haven't looked at our websites since we started the stream because I've been running this part. But I can check and see what the website stuff set up for it. Do the older DMW BLK22 batteries work for all the modes, or does it require the new one? So BLK22 is the current battery. That is the new battery that we're using in all the cameras. So that's the one that you need. All the newer cameras, so after the original S5, no longer physically support the BLF19, which was the previous generation GH5 battery. So it's the BLK22 for all these cameras. Does Human Detect AF work with Opengate 60p? Yes, it does. All of the focus modes work. What is the handheld high resolution with the S1II 2E Live View Composite? Yes. S1II and S1IIE, actually all of our cameras support high-resolution shot mode. It also supports the handheld high-res shot mode. We're still the only ones in the industry doing live view composite, so we still support that. We have our time-lapse functionality built in. We've got stop-motion animation built into the cameras. So yeah, it's got everything that you would normally expect. Just because we don't mention it in the announcement video doesn't mean that it doesn't have it. These cameras, the S1 series also is the return of multi-exposure for stills capture as well. So yeah, you have multi-exposure within the S1II series of cameras. Can someone explain the SSD backup feature? Central, so you can take footage or stills from the CF Express or SD card, and if you have an SSD attached to it, and you have the system set to recognize an SSD, you can then copy and move the content from your internal memory or internal storage to the SSD. This can be good for like backing up footage, or if you're moving between locations and you want to dump onto a drive, so you can hand that drive to someone, say, or just use that as a on-site backup. You can do that with the new cameras. Do all these cameras have UVC by USB-C? Do they do all have Bluetooth timecode? Do all have Opengate 60, same battery, flash timecode port, external RAW? JC, so USB UVC is supported on the S1II and the S1IIE. It's going to come as a firmware update on the S1R2. Bluetooth timecode. Bluetooth timecode is supported on the S1II and the S1IIE today. It'll come as a firmware update on the S1R Mark II. Do all have Opengate 60? No. The S1II has Opengate 60 frames per second. That'll be in the 5.1K or a 4x3 4.8K. Those can do 60 and 48 frame. Timecode port, physical timecode port. No, these cameras don't have the PC sync port that is running a hardwired timecode into the camera. So you have to use Bluetooth for that. Same battery. Yes, they all use the BLK22 battery. And external RAW, the S1II and S1IIE are ready to go for external RAW support with Atomos and Blackmagic devices. The S1R2 still is pending a firmware update for that. Improved IBIS on the new cameras. Yes, compared to S1II 2X, these cameras are SEPA rated for 8 stops in the middle, 7-stop periphery. This is SEPA's new standard. They've updated the standard rating, so you get a center and a periphery. So all the new cameras do have the newer stabilization, so it's a much more effective one than what the S1II and the 2X were capable of. These cameras all also support the cropless EIS mode, so you get that ability to shoot and say Opengate and still add a little bit of EIS to the footage without having to crop your field of view as well. More questions. HD 240 L mount. Does it have autofocus? Do you finally have subject detection for 4K 120? Like I said earlier, I don't shoot a lot of high frame rate, so I have to double check on it. But we'll talk about that on Thursday's stream as well. Do all of today's new model releases have custom IBIS for anamorphic lenses like the S1II2X? Yes. So we do have like 1.5, 1.33, 1.3, 2X, I think 1.8. So we do have all the same anamorphic stabilization and de-squeeze functionality that the cameras have had for a while. Linear manual focus and hybrid zoom supported on 24-60? Yes, they do have it. Do both new cameras have real-time LUT? Yes, they have real-time LUT. Does it have a low-pass filter? Does it really need it? It does not have a low-pass filter or an optical low-pass filter. It's a matter of what you shoot as to whether or not a low-pass filter is important or not. I'm not really someone to say whether it needs it or not. It depends on what you capture. Videographer, should I wait? I never recommend waiting. Waiting means potential missed opportunities, missed jobs, things like that. If you're working and you've got a job that benefits from having the features that are in a new product that's available now, do it. Because if you're working and you're making money from this world, the hardware that you buy now, by the time something else comes out, theoretically you should have it paid off by jobs that you work. So use the equipment that's available now to get the job done that you need to. That's just kind of, because otherwise you get into kind of that debilitating point of you're always waiting for something else. And the fact is there will always be something else that comes out down the line. So either you just wait forever because you want the next latest, greatest thing, or you buy now what works for what you need in your job and do it that way. Treat it like a business, and the equipment basically gets itself paid for. So, can you send Opengate through HDMI or via USB, UVC streaming, or is it limited to 16:9? It is 16:9 output. That's because that's the standard output for it. If you want to work with Opengate video over HDMI, you would need to go to RAW over HDMI, since that is not bound by the HDMI standards for 16:9 or 17:9 ratio. So if you do it in RAW over HDMI to a compatible external recorder, the S1 Mark II will do 6K 30p Opengate, as long as the recorder has that support for it. And you won't have the pillar boxes or the letterbox applied to it. If you try to send Opengate over HDMI, it takes the 3:2 ratio and puts it within a 3840 by 2160 output, which means you're going to get pillar boxes and you're going to get letterbox when you bring it in, and you're not actually shooting that full resolution because HDMI's video standard doesn't have a 3:2 ratio output or an Opengate output as a standard for it. So, let's see here. HEIF or HEIF, the S1II and the S1II do support the HEIF file format. This is included as an option to be able to choose instead of JPEGs. You will be able to shoot RAW plus HEIF. The HEIF files will have either the standard color profile, and you can use RealTime LUT with that as well, or you can set it to HDR, which will encode a hybrid log gamma color space and gamma for it. And it does tag all the way through the process. So if I shoot those stills, bring it onto my MacBook, it'll trigger the MacBook to say, hey, I've got an HDR image, and you see the brightness change, all that stuff. And if you take that image and you put it onto social media networks like Instagram, it is recognized and it will tag properly on those platforms as well. You do also have the ability that if you capture RAW images and then you go into the in-camera editing, so the onboard RAW processing, you do also have the ability to convert to an HEIF file if you have the camera set to HEIF capture. This will let you convert to that format if you need. And the camera does have an HEIF to JPEG converter in the camera as well, since there are some platforms that still don't play nice with HEIF, so you have that flexibility as well. Are you using the S1II as a webcam right now? I'm actually using the S1IIE. This is the USB UVC streaming. I am USB-C out at, I think I'm doing full HD 30p, because we're streaming the broadcast in full HD. I'm on an anamorphic lens. I'm de-squeezing in Streamlabs. Thank you, Tito Feradan, for the walkthrough on how to do that. Just because I really like the anamorphic look. I know people are like, live streaming talking head, why would you do anamorphic? But I don't know, it's fun. I can do it, so why not? So we are at 10 o'clock a.m. my time, Central US time. Thank you everybody for tuning in for this announcement. As I mentioned, I will be live on Lumix USA's YouTube channel this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be covering the S1 Mark II, the S1 Mark IIe, and the 24-60 F2.8 in more detail. I will have the system set up where I can be sharing the camera display, walking through menus, all that kind of stuff, answer questions more in depth. But again, really, really exciting time. for all of us here at Lumix, for all of you in the industry. We're really excited to see what y'all can create with these new cameras. Yeah, other than that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, your night, your morning, wherever it is in whatever time zone you're in. Yeah, look forward to seeing hopefully all of you on Thursday, 2 p.m. over on Lumix USA. Other than that, take care, goodbye, have a great day. Thanks for watching.